2015, this hospital run by Doctors Without Borders was destroyed by a U.S. airstrike in Kunduz, Afghanistan. On Saturday, civilians and officials in the Chardara district of Kunduz reported that at least 13 civilians were killed by American airstrikes against the Taliban there. Najim Rahim, Associated Press. Kunduz, Afghanistan. Airstrikes carried out by the American military killed at least 13 civilians on Saturday in the northern Afghan province of Kunduz, according to residents and officials in the area, a difficult battleground for both Afghan and American forces. The airstrikes took place in the Chardara district, where Afghan commandos, often advised by the American military and supported by United States air power, had been carrying out operations for several days. After overnight airstrikes against the Taliban, several residents said the fighters forced them in the morning to help them retrieve the bodies of the fighters from the rubble, at which point the airstrikes resumed. Captain Tom Gresbach, a spokesman for the United States military in Afghanistan, said they were aware of the claims and were looking into them. Ahmad Javad Salem, a spokesman for the Afghan commandos, denied any civilians had been killed in their operations and said that American airstrikes had killed 25 Taliban fighters. Over the past 3 days of our operations in the village, we haven't seen a single civilian, Mr. Salim said. We have video of the 8 people killed in the morning strikes, and all of them were armed. Afghan and American forces have struggled to clear the surroundings of Kunduz city after the Taliban briefly overran the city twice in the past 2 years. Following the first fall of the city, in 2015, American gunships mistakenly targeted the Doctors Without Borders hospital in the province, killing 42 people and destroying much of the hospital. Then, last year, American aircraft were involved in another deadly episode involving civilians, killing 33. American airstrikes have more than doubled since President Trump announced in August a new strategy for Afghanistan. According to the United States Air Force, American aircraft dropped about 900 munitions in August and September, compared to about 260 for the same period last year. Afghan officials have praised the strikes, saying they have helped fend off Taliban advances and decreased the risk that militants would take over cities and districts, but others have said the civilian toll from the airstrikes is unacceptably high. Residents of Garf Kishlak, a village in the Chardara district, said heavy fighting between the Taliban and Afghan commandos had continued for days, and Taliban targets in the village had been struck repeatedly. At night, they bombed many times in our area, said Abdul Qayyum, a tailor in the village who lost 3 cousins in the airstrikes. In the morning, after prayer, people got out to see what happened. My dad went, but I didn't go. Then we heard another strike. When I came out, I saw people carrying bodies on carts. Haji Mahmood, a resident, said the Taliban forced people in the village to retrieve the bodies of militants who had been killed the night before. They told us, and we had to, particularly when they said we are all Muslims and we can't leave bodies lying out there, he said. I saw 3 Taliban bodies. When the boys were trying to dig up those bodies, the plane struck again. 13 people were killed. I am wounded in my head and my arm. In an unrelated development in central Logar province, an American soldier was killed in a military operation Saturday afternoon, the American military said in a statement. No further details were given. The death was the 13th American military fatality in Afghanistan this year, the lowest annual total since 2001. In a separate development in Kabul, a court sentenced 7 bodyguards for the country's vice president, Gen. Abdul Rashid Dostum, to 8 years in prison for abducting and raping a political rival. Ahmad Ishchi, a former governor of Mr. Dostum's home province of Jazjan, claimed in December that he had been abducted by the vice president and his bodyguards from a sports event, and then raped with the tip of a gun. The case, which has tested the government's will to hold the powerful accountable, forced Mr. Dostum to go into de facto exile in Turkey. He tried to return once, but his plane was forced to turn around. Although Mr. Dostum has refused to answer to questions from the country's Attorney General, 7 of his guards submitted to questioning. Bakhtish Ishchi, the son of Mr. Ishchi, said he and his father were present in the court during the sentencing on Saturday, when the judge sentenced the bodyguards to 3 years in prison for abduction and illegal detention and 5 years for rape. In total, 10 people, including Dostum, are involved in this case, said Bakhtish Ishchi. Some of them, including Dostum, were not present for investigations. The Attorney General's office will decide in coming days whether to send their cases to court also if they don't show up for questioning. Najim Rahim reported from Kunduz, and Mujib Mashal from Kabul. Fahim Abed contributed reporting from Kabul, and Rod Nordland from London. A version of this article appears in print on November 5, 2017, on page 810 of the New York edition with the headline "Strikes Killed Civilians, Afghans Say."